The fourth planning process of the scope management knowledge area is about creating the work breakdown structure, one of the most important project artifacts in any project that is managed using a predictive approach. So create the work breakdown structure is the process of subdividing the project deliverables and the project work into smaller, more manageable components. The key benefit of this process is that it provides a framework of what has to be delivered on the project. This process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. So, as an outcome of the previous process defining the project scope, we had the scope statement of work, and part of this scope statement of work was the project deliverables. In order to make the management of the project deliverables execution more easier and manageable, you need to subdivide those project deliverables into smaller, more manageable components in order to develop the estimates of duration, resources, and budget. You cannot do such estimations on the project deliverables level. So this process is about subdividing, decomposing the project deliverables into more smaller parts. The inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs of this process are depicted in the figure below. We will need the scope management plan. As part of the scope management plan is how we are going to create the work breakdown structure. Some of the project documents we will need includes the project scope statement and the requirements documentation, in addition to the enterprise environmental factors and the organizational process assets. The tools and techniques of this process are the expert judgment and the decomposition, and the most important one is the decomposition. This technique is used in two processes in project management only: the create WBS and defining the project activities. Now, the key outputs of this process: the first, performance baseline, which is the scope baseline of the project, and updates to some of the project documents like the assumption log and the requirements documentation. The data flow diagram of this process showing that you will need inputs from the project management plan, from the project documents, and from the enterprise or the organization. Creation of the WBS will result with the scope baseline, and the baselines are part of the project management plan. The project management plan contains the subsidiary plans and the performance baselines, and the first baseline is the scope baseline. The work breakdown structure is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. So the work breakdown structure is a hierarchical decomposition. At the top of this hierarchy, you will have the project deliverables, and then those deliverables will be decomposed into smaller parts. The work breakdown structure organizes and defines the total scope of the project and represents the work specified in the current approved project scope statement. So the key input in order to develop or establish the work breakdown structure is the project scope statement, as the project scope is described in detail, and the deliverables of the project are being documented in the project scope statement as well. The planned work is contained within the lowest level of the WBS components, which are called work packages. So the lowest level of the work breakdown structure is known as work packages. A work package can be used to group the activities where work is scheduled and estimated, monitored, and controlled. So the lowest level, we will keep decomposing the deliverables of the project to reach to a more manageable scope or a more manageable size of work known as the work packages. It can be used to group the activities. It will help us while we are estimating the needed duration, budget, and resources of the project. Here is an example of how the work breakdown structure will look for a simple construction of a house project. The final deliverable of this project is constructing a house, and then it was decomposed into three parts. The first one is the internal scope, then the foundation scope, and then the external scope. And then we started breaking down and decomposing each part into more smaller packages. The lowest level here is known as the work package level. In the context of the work breakdown structure, the work refers to work products or deliverables that are the result of the activity and not the activity itself. Now, the inputs needed includes the project management plan component, which is the scope management plan. So one component will be needed from the project management plan. It is the scope management plan, which documents how the work breakdown structure will be created from the project scope statement. This is the benefit of having a scope management plan. How to create the work breakdown structure was planned earlier and documented in the scope management plan. Some of the project documents that can be used includes the project scope statement, which describes the work that will be performed and the work that is executed. The second project document is the requirements documentation. Detailed requirements describe how individual requirements meet the business need for the project. So we cannot start creating the WBS without knowing what are the project deliverables and what are the project requirements. Some of the enterprise environmental factors that might affect this process includes the industry-specific work breakdown structure standards that are relevant to the nature of the project you are managing. The industry-specific standards may serve as external reference sources for creating the WBS. If you are managing a construction project, you can find in the market standard or industry standard work breakdown structure template. Organizational process assets that might influence create the WBS process includes the policies, procedures, templates for the work breakdown structure, project files from previous projects, and lessons learned from previous projects. What's the template you will be using to develop the work breakdown structure can be found in the organizational process assets. Now, the tools and techniques for the create WBS process includes the expert judgment. You can consult any expert in the organization as an individual or group with the knowledge of defining the scope and creating the work breakdown structure. And the major tool we will be using in this process is the decomposition. Decomposition is a technique used for dividing and subdividing the project scope and the project deliverables into smaller, more manageable parts. The work package is the work defined at the lowest level of the work breakdown structure, for which cost and duration can be estimated and managed. So the decomposition is about decomposing, subdividing the project deliverables into smaller, more manageable parts. The lowest level, you will keep decomposing till you reach the lowest level, which is the work package, for which cost and duration can be easily estimated and managed. The level of decomposition is often guided by the degree of control needed to effectively manage the project, and the level of detail for work packages will vary with the size and complexity of the project. So you might have the level or the lowest level of the WBS with a work package of estimated budget of $500 because your project is very small, and you might have a lowest level of work package with $500,000 because your project is a mega project and it's multi-million project. Decomposition of the total project work into work packages generally involves the following activities. First of all, we will identify and analyze the deliverables and related work, and deliverables were identified in the project scope statement. In this stage, we will analyze those deliverables and the related work necessary to produce those deliverables, structuring and organizing the work breakdown structure, decomposing the upper work breakdown structure levels into lower level detailed components, developing and assigning identification codes for each WBS component, and verifying that the degree of decomposition of the deliverables is appropriate. Here are the activities that will be conducted as part of decomposing the project deliverables. A portion of a WBS with some branches of the WBS decomposed down through the work package level is shown in the figure below. We have a value management system project. This is the project. These are the key parts or the key deliverables of the project scope at the first level. The second level here, we have another subdivision of the needs assessment, for example, and the lowest level here is the work package level. The work package level is the level where the durations, budget and resources will be estimated, and then it will be aggregated to find out the total budget and duration of the project. This is the importance of the work breakdown structure. WBS structure may be created through various approaches. Some of the popular methods includes the top-down approach. Either you start from the top and move to the down. The use of the organization-specific guidelines and the use of the WBS templates within the organizational process assets. A bottom-up approach can be used to group the sub-components. So either you can use a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. The WBS structure can be represented in a number of forms, such as using phases of the project life cycles as the second level of decomposition, with the product and project deliverables inserted at the third level. Like this example, you have a software product release, and you can use the second level here as the project life cycle phases, and then the deliverables inserted at the third level. Using major deliverables at the second level of decomposition as shown in the figure below. Here we are using the major deliverables here, like the training, air vehicle, support equipment, and then breaking them down, and these are the work packages of the project. Now the key output of this process is the scope baseline. Okay, this is the first performance baseline, and it's very important. The developing the schedule and the budget baselines will be relying on the scope baseline. It can be defined as the approved version of a scope statement, WBS, and the WBS dictionary, which can be changed only through a formal change control procedure, and it is used as a basis for comparison. So the scope baseline has three components. The first one is the scope statement, the second one is the WBS, and the third one is the WBS dictionary. Once you have the scope baseline approved, you cannot change or modify the scope baseline unless there is an approved change request. The scope baseline will be the basis for comparison. If you want to compare the actual progress in the project to the planned progress when it comes to scope, you will refer to the scope baseline. Now the components of the scope baseline includes the project scope statement, which is an output of the defined scope process. The project scope statement includes the description of the project scope, major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints. The second part is the WBS, which is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. Each descending level of the WBS represents an increasingly detailed definition of the work package. So the highest level of detail in our WBS is at the lowest level. The high level deliverables are at the top of the WBS, and then you will start drilling down in order to detail more the work packages and the scope of the project. The work package, which is the lowest level of the work breakdown structure, it's a work package with a unique identifier. These identifiers provide a structure for hierarchical summation of costs, schedule, and resource information, and form a code of accounts. So giving a unique identifier for each item in the work breakdown structure is very important for the summation later on of the costs, schedule, and resources. Each work package is part of a control account. So the control account is a higher level in the WBS than the work package. A control account is a management control point where scope, budget, and schedule are integrated and compared to the earned value for performance measurement. A control account has two or more work packages, though each work package is associated with a single control account. You cannot have a work package that is linked to more than one control account, and the control account at the minimum should have 2 or 3 work packages. The planning package is another level in the work breakdown structure. A control account may include one or more planning packages. A planning package is a work breakdown structure component below the control account and above the work package, with known work content but without a detailed schedule activities. So it's for easier management. The planning package is a component that is above the work package level and below the control account level. It's in between of them. The WBS dictionary, which is part of the scope baseline, it's a document that provides detailed deliverable, activity, and scheduling information about each component in the work breakdown structure. So if you want to have more information, if you want to look at the attributes of the work breakdown structure components, you just need to have a look at the WBS dictionary. It's a document that supports the work breakdown structure. Most of the information included in the WBS dictionary is created by other processes and added to this document at a later stage. Information in the work breakdown structure dictionary may include the code of account identifier, the unique identifier given for each component, a description of the work for each component, the assumptions and constraints, the responsible organization, schedule milestones, associated schedule activities, resources required, cost estimates, quality requirements, acceptance criteria, technical references, and agreement information. All these attributes might be documented in the WBS dictionary for each component located in the WBS. The second output of this process is updates to the project documents, and some of these documents that might be updated includes the assumption log, updated with any new assumptions or constraints that were identified during this process, and the requirements documentation updated to include the approved changes resulting of creating the WBS process. The scope baseline is very important. It's the first performance baseline created in the project, and it is the output of the create WBS process.